This video will attempt to show you how to configure VLANs and trunks in a switched environment. I have a pretty basic setup here with 3 VLANs. I have VLAN 10, VLAN 20, and VLAN 30. VLAN 10 is going to use the IP addresses in the range of 172.17.10. VLAN 20 will use IP addresses in the range of 172.17.20. And VLAN 30 will use the IP addresses of 172.17.30. Remember that VLANs will typically map to separate subnets or separate networks, and this is the case that we have here. I'm going to add a couple more VLANs to this mix, with the native VLAN being 55 and the management VLAN being 99. We want to separate the management VLAN and the native VLAN from our data traffic on the network. So we'll take those out of the default of VLAN 1 and set them to VLAN 55 and VLAN 99 respectively. The first thing I'm going to do is configure all VLANs. And all switches. I'm going to start over here on the left with switch 2. Go to the command line interface, or the CLI. In the CLI, I'm going to get into config T and type in VLAN 10, hit enter, and I'm going to give VLAN 10 a name. Hit my question mark here to see the different options that I have, and all I have is exit, name, and no. I'm going to call this faculty. The next thing I'm going to do is type in exit to exit out of that VLAN. I'll configure VLAN 20. Give this a name of students. And then VLAN 30. Give this the name of staff. So now if I show my VLAN database, I can see that I have 3 VLANs here. VLAN 10, 20, and 30, and that they're active. I also have the default of VLAN 1. I have those other VLANs that I talked about, which is the management. So I'm going to do that one as well here. Back into config T mode, VLAN 99, management. And in the VLAN 99, I would have all my IP addresses that are used for management of my switches and other devices through Telnet or SSH or other means. The last VLAN that I want is VLAN 55, and I will use this as my native VLAN. I will configure those same 5 VLANs on all 3 of the other switches. Back into config T mode, VLAN 10, faculty, VLAN 20, students, VLAN 30, staff, VLAN 55, native, and VLAN 99, management. One more switch to go. Back into config T mode, VLAN 10, faculty, VLAN 20, students, VLAN 30, staff, VLAN 55, native, and VLAN 99 is my management. The next thing I need to do is configure my ports that are associated with each VLAN. So Fast Ethernet 11 is going to be configured for VLAN 10, Fast Ethernet 18 for VLAN 20, Fast Ethernet 6 to VLAN 30 over here. So I'll start back over on my switch, get into my interface, Fast Ethernet 11. Switch port mode access to make it an access port. And then the switch port access VLAN 10. The next one was the fast Ethernet 018. So int FA 0/18. Switch port mode access. Switch port access VLAN 20. The last one was interface 0/6. Switch port mode access. Switch port access VLAN 30. So now if I type in do show VLAN, I can see that I have ports associated with my different VLANs. Everything that I did not associate with a port is in the default VLAN of 1, and best security practice says that I should probably shut down all of these additional ports and move them into an unused VLAN. I won't do that for this example here. I have VLAN 10, which is faculty. Fast Ethernet 011 is associated with that. VLAN 20 for students, Fast Ethernet 018. VLAN 30 for staff, Fast Ethernet 06. I have my native VLAN I'll use for my trunks later on, and my management VLAN of 99. Remember that ports can only be a part of one VLAN at a time. I need to do the same thing back over on switch 3. So I'm essentially going to duplicate the commands that I just did there. Get into my interface, Fast Ethernet 0/6. That was the switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 30, that one is a part of. I have Fast Ethernet 18. Switch port mode access to make it an access port again. And then switch port mode access VLAN 20 to make it part of VLAN 20. Then I have my interface Fast Ethernet 0/11. And that's going to be an access port. And that's going to be part of VLAN 10. Okay, within this switch, I should not be able to ping any other of these PCs. So PC4 should not be able to ping PC5. PC4 should not be able to ping PC6. For one, they're on different subnets, and for two, they're on different VLANs here. So pingings aren't going to work. Just to prove that real quick here, I'll go to the desktop tab. I'm on PC4, and I'll attempt to ping PC6 down here, 172.17.30.26. And I'm going to get a request timed out here. So that is not working. What I should be able to do though is ping from PC4, which is in VLAN 10, over to PC1, which is in VLAN 10, as long as I set up these links here as trunk links. If you remember, trunk links carry VLAN traffic from one switch to the next, and they will carry all VLAN traffic by default from one switch to the next. So what I need to do is set up all of my gigabit ports here as trunk ports, and then my pings through the switches should work, just to show that they do not at this point, even within the same VLAN. I'm going to try to ping from PC4 over to PC1. They're in the same subnet, they're in the same VLAN, but I do not have any trunk link set up at this point, so it should not work for me. So if I ping 172.17.10 dot, check that address again, 10.21, no response. So again, in order to correct that, I am going to configure my trunk links. So I'll start over here on the left with switch 2, get into the CLI, get into my interface gigabit Ethernet 1/1 it looks like. Type in switch port mode trunk. Notice it brings that line up. I want to set the native VLAN on this trunk, and the native VLAN would be used to carry all untagged traffic. So I type in switch port trunk native VLAN 55 is what I set it to. And if you want, you could set the allowed VLANs on this trunk link. Notice I just got a message here about native VLAN mismatching with my other switches. I will take care of that once I configure those. But if you would not change your native VLAN on the other switches, you would continually get that message. But I'm just going to allow VLAN 10, 20, and 30 across that trunk. So I'm going to do the switch port trunk allowed VLAN 10, 20, and 30 across it there. Again, by default, all VLANs are allowed across that. And that is it for my trunk link there. So I will configure that same thing on the other switches. Get into my config T mode, interface GI 1/1, switch port mode trunk, native VLAN of 55, and I will also set my allowed list to 10, 20, and 30. It would help if I spell switch port right. And one more time on this switch for my interface GI 1/2. Switch port mode trunk, switch port trunk native VLAN 55, and then the allowed list of switch port trunk allowed VLAN 10, 20, and 30. And one more time over on switch 3's gigabit Ethernet 1/2. So interface GI 1/2. Switch port mode trunk. Switch port trunk native VLAN 55, and my allowed list of switch port trunk allowed VLAN 10, 20, and 30. You can see here I was getting some messages for span and tree blocking and unblocking some ports until I got this fully configured, and those are expected results. So at this point in time, I should be able to ping across the network from one device to the next. So go back to PC4 here. Try to ping from PC4 at 10.24 over to PC1 at 10.21. Within the same VLAN, that traffic now flows through the trunk lines from one switch to the next. At this point, I would not be able to ping devices in other VLANs though. I couldn't ping from PC4 here down to PC6, which is the 30.26 address, because those are in different VLANs, different subnets, and I have no inter-VLAN routing set up at this point. That will come later in the curriculum on how to set that up. But for now, hopefully after watching this video, you have a little bit better idea of how to set up and configure the VLANs on a Cisco switch, as well as setting up the trunk interfaces with the native VLAN and the allowed list on those switches as well. Thanks for watching.